And welcome back. And we're moving into our second conversation for today as we talk about the celebration of the 94th anniversary of the birth of Philip Goldson. We have with us at this time the coordinator of the Goldson House, that is, in Belmopan, Kendra Griffith. And we have two representatives, associates and family members of Philip Goldson himself. We have Gilda Lewis, who is a good friend, and Maud Williams, who is a sister. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
How's everybody this morning?
Okay.
We're feeling talkative? This is, of course, a great opportunity, you know, where we're closely, I love September, we're closely approaching September. And this is a great time to kind of get the patriotic feeling kicking into gear. We're celebrating the birthday of Philip Goldson. Kendra, let's just start off with a bit of a background as to how the anniversary of his birth is going to be celebrated.
Well, we've had a busy week and we're happy about that at the Goldson House. We've had visitation from the summer camps and preschools all around Belmopan, and it's been a great week. So for the his birthday anniversary, we're having an open house so people can visit the Goldson House. We'll be open until 5 p.m. today, and they can take a tour, and then it's always a good feeling to be somewhere where he lived and learn about him. And we're also going to have on August 11th, 12th, and 13th a summer camp at the Goldson House, and we'll be collaborating with BCVI, and one of the activities that we'll have is an intro to Braille so that they can associate feel that connection with Goldson, being that he was visually impaired and 21 years of his service to Belize was done when he was visually impaired. So, and we also have the Philip Goldson, The Boy with the Big Name children's book, which will be launched on October 3rd, the anniversary of the day he passed away as well. And Mr. Larry Vernon is doing the biography of Philip Goldson, which will be launched in early 2018. So it's going to be a good year for the Goldson House.
There's a lot going on. Now, I want to get the perspectives of Gilda and Maud here to talk a bit about your own interactions with Mr. Goldson. I'll start with you, Mrs. Williams, because obviously your interaction would be very different than most. Now, oftentimes as siblings, you know, we're proud of what our siblings do no matter what. When you look at the recognition of his contribution and how it is being acknowledged today, what does it mean to you?
Well, I have a bit of satisfaction because for a time it looked as though nobody would remember Philip. But now I see everything moving and people recognizing him and the things that he did during his lifetime and so on. So I think the whole family now is beginning to get that satisfaction that he's being remembered.
Yeah. And for you, Gilda?
Well, my association with Mr. Goldson came as an adult, but I knew him as a child.
You knew of him or you knew him?
I knew him as a child because I was at St. Mary's School and he was teaching there. And I was probably 4 or 5 because I went to, you know, the first class. But I remember him being referred to as Master Philip. And even then he had some vision problem because I vividly remember the very thick spectacles that he was wearing at that time. And then during the maritime areas situation, I became involved with him through that.
You know, when we look at people through the lens of historians, I should say, we are only privy to one aspect or several aspects. And people who really interact, it's, you know, you look back at people you knew when you were younger, you really only remember one part, but you guys have details as to his personality, perhaps things that people are less aware of, qualities or the characteristics about Mr. Goldson that you think are lesser recognized today, but that were important to his work and contribution. Let's start with you, Gilda.
Well, I had trouble accepting that he was blind.
Yeah.
Because he had so much vision, right? And you would never, the only time you knew that he was blind was if he had to sign something, somebody had to, you know, put a finger and show him where to sign. Yeah. But apart from that, he did not act as though he couldn't see, because he was seeing all that he had vision, right?
Yeah. And for you?
Well, for me, it was Philip as my older brother, and his kindness that he showed to all of us in the family. He always wanted to do things for us. Little things, everyday things. Like I remember my father had a farm and he used to bring them bags and bags of corn. And he would patch the corn and put it in a mill and make corn jam for us. You know, little things like that that he felt would please us. He was always doing that for us.
Yeah, so he liked being caretaker.
Yes. And he started that with his family, with my brothers and sisters. So it wasn't surprising that when he went out into his job as a politician, that same kindness was transferred to people, you know, that he came in contact with.
No, it's such a great opportunity to have persons available to share stories. I imagine that you all are contributing to the biography as well. What do you do, or how do you ensure that persons like Miss Gilda and Miss Maud are involved in the celebration of the birth of Philip Goldson?
Well, first of all, we always appreciate when people share their experiences with Philip Goldson with us, being that oral history is very important. Yes. It's a very important part of history. And what we are planning to do is we want to have an evening with the Goldsons, and not only with the Goldsons, but other people that knew Mr. Goldson, so that the tour would be much more enriched. So you'll take the tour and then you'll have your experience with Miss Williams, with persons like Miss Gilda Lewis, talking about what Philip Goldson was like, his journey through life, his journey through the political life of Belize, the independence movement. So we want, information is very powerful, and we really love the contributions that we're receiving at the Goldson House. We've received so many visits this week with people that were actually associated with Mr. Goldson, and just hearing stories about their childhood with Mr. Goldson, them growing up, seeing the differences that he made, and just little things about his personalities that they would share, which it's really special to me and everyone.
I was just going to ask that, because for you as the coordinator of the house, you were exposed to so many stories, but then you get to have interactions with Miss Gilda and Miss Maud and have a one-on-one conversation to get even further or even more details on stories. So what has been the most surprising thing that you have learned in communicating with people who interacted with Mr. Goldson?
Well, it was actually before I became the coordinator. I was interning with ISCR at that time, and I had the opportunity to take a tour of the Goldson House before it became the Goldson House. They were reconstructing it at the moment, and I was walking with Mr. Inkalana and Miss Maud, and we were walking through the house, and she was showing us the living room where he would live, the bathroom, the kitchen space. And I remember as we were walking down the hallway, which is now where we personalize Goldson, having photos of his family, she began to share of how the family would plead him to come out of politics, that it was enough already, enough was enough. And he would always say, okay, I'll think about it, but it was always no. His major goal was the development of Belize, the growth of Belize, and even though his family, like his sister, would ask, just do this for us, come out of politics, there was no budging.
Ms. Maud, you have to tell us the rest of that story. What a difference it would have made.
Yes. Yes, but because I grew up with Philip.
Yeah.
And I mentioned his kindness to us, you know. So when anything happened that I perceived to be unkind or so on, I took it personally.
Yeah.
You know, and I used to tell him, why don't you leave it alone, come out, you know. You don't have to be in politics, and he said, "No worry about that, man." You know, that was his thing, you know. And I remember vividly that when he was involved in a maritime areas problem there,
Yeah.
He told me that I am not going to run again. I'm finished with politics. And then I was working near to where he was living.
Yeah.
So one day he called me and said, "You have some spare time, please come over." And so I went, and then he told me, "You know, elections are coming." Mr. Esquivel got in touch with me, and they need me in the Albert division. I said, "What's wrong with you?"
You said you were coming out.
"Yes, what's wrong with you?" I said, "You told me that you were finished, you know, you would not run again, and you're going back in this thing." And he said, "You know, don't worry, man, things will be okay."
Yeah.
You know, and well, once he said that to me, I accepted it,
Yeah.
you know.
Now, it really shows how little politics has changed, because obviously we still see today where leaders and politicians are subjected to negativity. Did it ever bother him, or was there ever one thing that they said about him or his actions or his causes that kind of got under his skin?
I think it got under our skin more than it got under his skin, you know? Because I was very upset. I was angry sometimes when, you know, he went blind and he came back to Belize. Remember, he was in New York for some time, and he came back to Belize, and he was in politics, and everybody was saying, "Blind eye James, and blind this and blind that." And I said, why are you putting up with that? You don't need to do it, you know. But it really affected us.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm
could
telling you,
imagine.
I was angry sometimes, you know. I said, it isn't worth it. But that's what he wanted to do, and he did it.
Yeah. Well, Miss Gilda has been laughing the entire time, because she knew the whole while that he wasn't going to leave. He was just telling you that. Miss Gilda, tell us about what it meant for you to be involved within this era and with Mr. Goldson at that time, especially now when you get the chance to look back at the contribution.
It was an education,
Yeah.
right? Because before that I wasn't really involved in politics. I did go on a No Guatemala demonstration when I was 18 or 19, and then I lived abroad for a long time. So I wasn't really involved in politics until the maritime areas came upon us.
And what inspired you to get involved?
Well, I think harking back to the No Guatemala demonstrations at that time, and there was a direct link between that and the Maritime Areas Act. So I remember he put an advertisement, I think it was in the Reporter, saying that he wanted to have a discussion with interested people about this whole maritime areas thing, and I saw the advertisement and I went to the meeting, and that was the beginning of it.
Yeah. And tell us a bit about what he was like in educating and inspiring people to get involved.
Well, I think everybody who got involved with Mr. Goldson got educated, because he had such a wide scope of knowledge about everything, and planning ability. You know, it wasn't just what he knew, it was how he could pass it on to people that he was involved with that really was important.
Yeah. And what do you think that you learned the most from interacting with him and others during that period?
I never saw him, I think I saw him angry once in all that time. So I learned, you know, how to keep my cool.
Yeah.
I guess.
And take your licks in between when you're standing up.
Yeah.
So what made him angry that one time? Mm-hmm. So what made him angry that one time?
I think there was some political move to divide and conquer.
Oh, yeah. And that bothered him.
Yes.
Yeah. Share with us your favorite memory of working along with Mr. Goldson.
I think the times I spent as one of the executive committee members of NEIGHBOR, mm-hmm. that really, you know, was when I got to know him much better, mm-hmm. because of those interactions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what about the interactions you think has really stuck with you?
Just seeing how he could bring people together, you know.
Okay. That's a great quality. And how about you, Miss Maud? What is your outstanding memory of time with your brother?
My time with my brother was like a lifetime.
Of course. You know? That's why you may take us back to the childhood days. Who knows?
What I remember about my brother was the way he took care of his brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. You know, we went to St. Mary's School, and like Gilda said, he was like what they used to call a pupil teacher, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. at St. Mary's after he finished standard 6. And then the headmaster at the time told my mother that he should go to high school, and my mom said, well, we don't have the finances for that. So he said, send him back to school, and he would tutor him, and he did that. Mm-hmm. And so he passed his overseas exams, mm-hmm. from St. Mary's Primary School, mm-hmm. the junior Cambridge and the senior Cambridge. Mm-hmm. So he got that secondary education, but we were in primary school with no prospect of going on to high school. Mm-hmm. So when he started to work, he decided he would send his younger siblings to high school. Mm-hmm. And he did that. He sent his 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and a niece to high school. And I would never, ever forget that. That's my memory of my brother. Yeah. Because if he did not do that, I would not have been able to do the things that I have done in my lifetime. Yeah. So I will always remember him for that and thank him.
Yeah. That's a very, I think, it's a story that is still very relevant today, because we know a lot of people who always want to give back to the rest of their family, mm-hmm. especially if they were not given the opportunity. And they work very hard to do it. Mm-hmm. But showing his, how important education was for him as well. So let's start to talk about the night with the Goldsons. You said that's coming up as well, yes. Kendra? So people can be able to have what I'm able to experience mm-hmm. today, just one-on-one conversations, and feel like you're a part of the life mm-hmm. of Mr. Goldson.
So what we're planning to do is the regular tour, mm-hmm. but we have a very nice space at the Goldson house, and the tour will be accompanied with, as I stated, the night with the Goldsons. Mm-hmm. So it will be learning more about who he was, as we have done today, and just a bit more. Yeah. And then just being able to ask all the questions, especially children and their parents. They always have, what was he like, where did he live, what were the things that he enjoyed doing. Mm-hmm. And then mainly when they asked that question, what were the things that he enjoyed doing, was basically just talking to the people about Progress for Belize. That was one of the main things. And it's such an inspiration, because every time I give the tour, I start off with his education, mm-hmm. and children are like, what, he wasn't able to go to high school, and how did he become our national hero? And I show that the progress, that he never saw anything as an obstacle, becoming a lawyer at the age of 52, doing the overseas examinations at this age of 16 and 18. there was just no stop to it.
It was never too late. Yeah. When you look at our society today and how some of the issues, you speak about the Maritime Areas Act, we speak so much about the Sarstoon and what's happening there. What's your perspective on Belize today, being a part of the life and actions and undertakings of Mr. Goldson? Let's start with you, Miss Gilda.
Well, he's gone, but he lives on. Because people are always wondering, what would Mr. Goldson have done? What would he have said? You know? So he's still here.
Yeah. We're still fighting. Yeah.
I remember my time when Philip was in politics. And used to talk to us a lot about what was going on in the country and so on, you know. So I was very much involved in what was happening. In wherever I lived, I was part of the political scene there, you know. I remember vividly living in the Albert Division where he was running. And the ladies in the Albert Division and I, you know, we used to be out canvassing and all that. So I was a part, like I became a part of it. And you know, I think my children, they just moved into the whole thing too. They didn't get out like I did, but they knew what was happening. And they knew their Uncle Philip, so, you know, they were like taking his message to school and that type of thing. And I think it culminated because, you know, it ended up with Beverly being, you know, a politician, getting into politics.
Once it's in the family, it's hard to get out, you know.
Yes.
In the blood.
And people used to say, which one of them? Everybody said, not me, not me. Until suddenly one day she said, Mom, I'm going to run in Belize Rural Central. I said, what? His brother said, what's wrong with you? He said, nothing. And so
you couldn't stop another one.
She got in, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that, because he was there, and he was like a part of we were part of the family together. Everybody just got into the whole thing with him.
What's one message from when Mr. Goldson was alive that you would want Belizeans to adapt in today's society?
Yes, so many different.
One that comes to the mind first.
Well, I think his kindness to people.
Yeah.
I think that is it. Because you hear people talk about giving to people and so on. We used to tell him, you take your last shilling and give somebody. That's the way he was. As long as somebody needed something and he had it, he would give it. You know?
Yeah, that's a good one. Miss Gilda?
I think I would call him Mr. Fix-It. Because he had the answer for whatever situation was developing or could develop or had developed, and you know, he was just able to fix things.
Yeah. And you'd like to see that today in today's society. Yeah. All right. Well, we had our own conversation here today, Kendra, but let's get the rundown. So people, most of the activities will be held at the Goldson House. So it's primarily for people within the Belmopan area. Unless somebody wants to travel to Belmopan. But tell us the rundown and where people can get the additional details.
The additional details will be published on the niche Facebook page as well as the Goldson House for Democracy and Patriotism Facebook page. The closest activity that we'll have is the summer camp, which we are collaborating with BCVI, and it will be August 11th, 12th, and 13th. And then we have on October 3rd, the anniversary of the day that he passed away, the launch of Philip Goldson, The Boy with the Big Name, the children's book, which we are excited for. And basically the night with the Goldsons will be following as well. And we're just going to have more activities, so you just can keep posted and visit the Goldson House. It's an amazing place to be.
I was just going to say, it's a great time to be able to go visit as well, because it's summer, so you can take the kids during the day. Thank you so much for stopping in and for us to have our own celebration here as well, talking about his life. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead now and take our break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to representatives of the YMCA. So stay tuned.